Welcome to the 5th episode of the Revolution Today podcast. This episode is sponsored by the wonderful people on my Patreon. If you want to be a supporter, please go to the link down in the description. That is patreon.com/revolutiontoday. Today we are talking about the rise of Republican Christo-fascism and ultimately really the events taking place in Texas and, just overall the problems with republicanism and how religion also plays a part in those problems. Without further ado, let's get into it. So many of you have seen the news coming out of Texas, the news regarding the Republican lawmakers in Texas. Specifically, you've probably heard a lot about the abortion news and the abortion issue going on in Texas. It's a big problem. I have an issue with it. A lot of people have issues with it. But for some reason, it's split down the middle. It's the Republicans don't have problems with it, or the Republicans have problems with abortion. The Democrats do not. And I being neither of the two, being a leftist, I have also a problem with the Republican side of things. I tend to agree with Democrats on abortion. I'm pro-choice. I think that people shouldn't have their hands on women and their bodies. And I have a real problem with the Republicans who are trying to ban abortion in Texas. Specifically, those who are, arguing that it's murder, that they're pro-life, and that this is a sin. This is against God's will. I have a problem with actually me being also a religious person. I'm a Christian leftist, which in America that's unheard of, because usually if you're Christian, you're a Republican. You could be Democrat, but usually most people associate Christianity with republicanism. But I am a leftist and I am a Christian person. I believe in the words of the Bible, literally, not figuratively. But that besides that, the point there. I have a problem with republicanism and its use of Christianity within government. As a Christian myself, I tend to criticize Christians a lot, just because I find that Christianity is really confusing and problematic, because you have, on the one hand, people like me who are leftist Christians who actually take the words literally and actually put into practice what needs to be done, through means of mutual aid, advocation for socialism, communism, that sort of thing. There's Christians like me who advocate for that sort of stuff, because we're taking the words of the Bible literally, the words of Jesus literally. We believe, and I certainly believe that Jesus Christ was a communist. Not, at that time, communism wasn't even a term yet. It wasn't even an ideology, a way of life yet. But the practice of communism was certainly present in the time of Jesus and the disciples and that time of his birth, throughout his days living until his death on the cross. I think that, yes, communism wasn't a term yet, but Jesus Christ did live the life of a communist. He did put in practice the aspects of communism. And really, he kind of, I guess you could say he was the original. He laid the foundations for what it means to be a communist, what it means to be a good person, which in itself correlates with communism. But I don't want to get into this whole thing, because I could go on and on and on. But specifically, I believe that, Jesus was communist. His beliefs were communist, of course. I just think that Jesus was, in himself, he aligns more with a communist ideals than he does with the Republican ideals. Like clearly, like it's no question, it's no question. Jesus's beliefs and ideals align more with a communist than they do with the Republican. Um, but anyway, I have a problem as a Christian myself. I have a problem with religion and politics. I have a problem with religion playing a part in your decision making. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be religious. You can be religious, but I think that religion and politics should not mingle, should not mix. They should coexist, but they shouldn't intertwine themselves within each other's meaning. So like for example, someone deciding whether or not, like, of course, for example, abortion. So somebody a Republican in power who is a lawmaker in Texas, for example, says, I don't support abortion because it goes against the Bible. First of all, you're not even thinking about the person who you affect with that law that you're putting in place, with that decision. You're not thinking about the person on the other end of the receiving end, the person who has to deal with the effects of your decision. You're simply saying that you only look at the Bible and you don't consider other options. Which, in fact, let me say this: the Bible itself, it's not good to say that you support or you base your decision on the Bible. Like for abortion, you say, okay, I'm against abortion because the Bible says so. In fact, the Bible itself doesn't even say anything about being anti-abortion. In fact, there are multiple passages in the Bible. I don't know them off the top of my head, but I could probably pull them up here. But there's multiple passages. Okay, yeah, there's different passages. And there's different passages about abortion. There's multiple, and there's even passages where God himself tells you how to do an abortion of itself. So if it's like, so here we go. Okay, here we go. So the passage here is Numbers 5:11 through 31, and it says here, verse 23. Yes, the priest is to write these curses on a scroll and then wash them off into the bitter water. He shall make the woman drink the bitter water that brings a curse, and this water that brings a curse and causes bitter suffering will enter her. The priest is to take from her hands the grain offering for jealousy, wave it before the Lord, and bring it to the altar. The priest is then to take a handful of the grain offering as a memorial offering and burn it on the altar. After that, he is to have the woman drink the water. If she has made herself impure and has been unfaithful to her husband, this will be the result. When she is made to drink the water that brings a curse and causes bitter suffering, it will enter her abdomen will swell, and her womb will miscarry, and she will become a curse. However, if the woman has not made herself impure, but is clean, she will be cleared of guilt and will be able to have children. So this is talking about, this is like a test for if your wife's unfaithful. This is like what God has said to do in the event of you thinking that your wife is unfaithful, and if you suspect that she's been unfaithful. Now, it does say, of course, if she hasn't been unfaithful, she will be cleared of guilt and she'll have children. But at the same time, this is saying it doesn't matter whether she's unfaithful or not in this story. Yes, that's a part of it, but that doesn't matter because it clearly says here that she will drink a water mixed with certain things, whatever, and she'll drink this water and it will go into her stomach and her womb, and it will abort the baby pretty much. I mean, abortion wasn't a term back in the day of the times, of the times of the Lord and of the disciples and all those people. It's not a term. You can't sit there and say, we're going to have an abortion, because the word abortion was never existing at all in that time. The term abortion wasn't a thing. No one really knew what abortion was, but the Lord says here that you will have her drink this water and she'll have an abortion if she's unfaithful, and it'll curse her and have her abortion. So, and there's other passages I won't get into. I know Genesis has a passage, but really this is talking about, this is itself saying how to perform an abortion, in a religious sense, because it talks about making offerings on the altar, adding ingredients to the water, making her drink the water. This is basically telling you how to perform a religious abortion in the name of the Lord. And so for Republicans, I have a real problem when Republicans sit there and say that they're pro-life because the Bible says so. In fact, the Bible doesn't even mention at all in any passage that abortion is murder or abortion is bad. Because two things: it didn't exist at the time, but also it doesn't say that it doesn't say that killing a baby or killing an unborn child is murder or it's wrong, because it's not actually they're not actually killing an unborn baby. Because even in the Bible, like I said, in Genesis, I forget which chapter, I don't know the name, I don't know the chapter, but the verse says that he breathes life into the body when it's talking about when he's creating the human being, when he takes the dust from the ground and molds them in the dirt and molds that person into his image, and he talks about how he breathes life into them, and how when they have the breath of life, they become alive. So the Bible clearly says there that life doesn't start until there's breath. So if the Bible says, hey, if you're not breathing, you're not alive, then you can't sit there and say that the Bible says abortion is bad, and that's why I'm pro-life. Because the Bible doesn't say anything about aborting a fetus. It strictly says life begins at breath. When you have the ability to breathe, that's when life begins. And they also have, even in that Numbers passage, how to complete an abortion the religious way. So I have a real issue with Republicans, especially those in Texas, who are basing their governmental decisions off of the Bible and its passages. Because the Bible itself isn't pro-life. It's pro-life, but it's also pro-abortion, because it tells you how to give an abortion, but it also tells you that it's pro-life in the fact that once you breathe, you're basically alive and you're considered alive. So the claim that, they're killing an unborn baby that's alive, it's not alive, because according to the Bible, you're not alive until you have the ability to breathe. So I have a real problem with Republicans saying that they support the pro-life choice, not only for the reasons in the Bible, but for the reasons that make sense. I don't think that it should be said that I don't think men should control women's bodies. They say, well, you got to think about it this way. If you're talking about in terms of Christianity and God didn't create men and women originally. He didn't create man and woman for the sole purpose of reproducing. Like, a woman's purpose by God was not to be a mother, was not to be that of a childbearing. It was that God gave women the ability to have children, but he didn't make it so that women's sole purpose for living was to be a childbearing mother. In fact, women are meant for so much more. I know throughout history, many times, women have been, discriminated against. They've been, enslaved. They've been held back. from the earliest of times I can remember of civilization up till, you know, up till 1960s, women weren't allowed to women weren't really allowed to work. Women couldn't work. Women couldn't, dress how they wanted. They really couldn't be on their own. Because you had for most of history, women had to have a husband. They had to get married. They had to have children. They had to do the housework. They couldn't be independent. They couldn't live on their own. They couldn't really do things that they wanted to do. They had to follow society's will. And society said that women had to give birth to children. They had to be a good wife. They had to do the housework. They had to dress appropriately. They had to bow down to their husbands and be subservient to them. Is that the word? I don't know. But the husband's always higher up on the hierarchy than the woman is. And so that's how it always was until, recently, people broke free from religion's control over society, and women started doing what they wanted to do. Women started dressing how they wanted. They started acting how they wanted. They started getting jobs. They started, doing a lot of things that they normally wouldn't have been able to do under a Christian dominated society. And so women finally have the rights to do what they want. And alongside that, I mean, it came to the point where there was a whole court case in the Supreme Court, Roe v. Wade, talking about abortion, and because abortion was originally outlawed completely, like you couldn't go, like you couldn't do it. It was a problem, and then Roe v. Wade comes in and says, no, this is allowed. You can have abortions, and women have rights to their bodies, and there couldn't be any restrictions from the government involving abortion. That it's up to the woman to decide how they want to do what they want to do with their bodies, and the government cannot have excessive restriction on their choices. Much like how a lot of Republicans, they come out in favor of the First Amendment, having the right to free speech, to say whatever they want. They always talk about having the right to do whatever they want, liberty to do what they want in this country. But at the same time, they go against what they're preaching and say that women should not be allowed to have the choice to do what they want with their bodies, and that it should be men that control their decisions and control their bodies. And I don't like that, because women are independent. Women are able to do what they want nowadays. Women have the rights just like any other person, just like man. Men and women have equal rights, and it's not fair that Republican men think they can control and dictate women and their bodies. It's totally unfair, because on the one hand, women get all kinds of hate for having a baby and then aborting it, going around sleeping around with people. And then men do the same thing. They go and sleep around. Like, a woman goes and sleeps around with a bunch of men, and she's considered, a whore or something, rather, something like that. She's considered immoral, and it's wrong, and it's so bad. But if a man goes and sleeps around with a bunch of women, he's considered awesome. He's cool. He's amazing. He's a Chad. He's someone of higher status. Like, they look up to him because, hey, he's slept with a bunch of women. So if you think about it, women get a lot more hate and a lot more judgment on things that they do that men also do. So I find it really messed up that men think that they have the right to determine what a woman needs or doesn't need, or how a woman chooses to go about her body. It's to me, it's a very big issue for a lot of people, and it's a very big issue for me that Republicans, while they claim to be pro liberty, pro rights, like everybody has rights to do what they want. At the same time, they go behind that and they say, well, women have rights except for the fact that they can't get an abortion if they so choose, because it goes against the Bible, even though the Bible, like I said, has nothing to do with abortion. It has nothing to do with pro-life beliefs. It says nothing about being pro-life. It says more. It says more. It has more to say about abortion than it does about being pro-life. So I think that it's ridiculous that Republicans think they can get away with doing things because of using the Bible as an excuse. Now, I'm not saying that all parts of the Bible are about certain things, but for specifically abortion, the Bible is actually pro-abortion and it's not pro-life. Because many times in the Bible you see like that's like the passage I just read about the woman drinks the water and then she has an abortion if she's unfaithful. There's also the one about, I think it's Abraham and his son. God tells him to kill his son. So he goes and lays his son on this altar and is about to kill him. But then God says, no, don't do that. But the fact is, it was about, hey, kill your son. And so you can't sit there and say that the Bible is pro-life when there literally is a passage that says that Abraham should kill his son and sacrifice him. I mean, like, I don't know. It's difficult because, like, it's difficult for me as a Christian because I've read the Bible many times. I've studied it throughout my childhood, you know, going to church and all that stuff, and I read a lot about it. But at the same time, I don't let that define my decisions or my beliefs in politics. My beliefs in politics, yes, like as a Christian, yes, I'm a communist because as a Christian, that's what you should be doing. That's what you should be, because communism is most aligned with Jesus's teachings. But my beliefs in politics come from me being a good person and believing in the right things. I don't let religion influence my political beliefs because I don't think that I think religion is used as an excuse, as a scapegoat for a lot of political decisions. And I don't think that religion should have any place in government. Even me as a Christian saying that, like, how could I? But yeah, I don't think religion should play a part in government because religion is a big issue in the world, because religion is the reason why people like the Taliban and ISIS and Al Qaeda, why they hate America so much, why they go to war with each other because of religion, and why we end up going to war, and why they've gone to war for centuries, like the Crusades back in the Middle Ages when they went to war with the Muslims in the Ottoman Empire, the Christian Knights, the Templars. They went to war and tried to take back the Holy Land from the Muslims. Didn't work out, but they tried. So for centuries, religion has played a part in war and has driven decisions of war. And in that case, I don't think religion should be in politics, because religion in the international stage, it's a bad, not a bad idea. Religion in the international picture, it's not a good look for us as a whole, because I'm in favor of, you know, people having the right to practice their own religion, but there's a point where religion goes too far and causes chaos and violence, especially in the Middle East. You know, religious wars have gone on for centuries over there in the Middle East. A lot of acts of terror have been in the name of religion, like ISIS terrorist attacks, you know, all sorts of terrorist attacks. involving religion, you know. Um, so religion shouldn't be in politics, or shouldn't really be enforced. I think that everybody should, if everybody had the right to practice their own religion, I don't think. Well, let's not. Let's take that back, because people people do attack others and commit acts of terror in the name of religion, regardless of whether or not religion is legally allowed to be, or allowed to be practiced freely. They do attack and cause terror regardless. But I think that in terms of, especially in this country uh, is a melting pot of many different religions, many different ethnicities, races, beliefs, and I think that having Christianity, this country, first of all, this country is not a theocracy or a democracy. Well, not exactly a democracy. I wouldn't put it that way, but we're at least not a theocracy. So I don't see why Christianity uh, should be considered in government, why it should be allowed in government. Religion itself, I think religion should stay away. Um, the whole the separation of church and state, that should apply to the government too. The government shouldn't have any, and religion shouldn't have any influence within government, because, like as you see in Texas, religion plays a part in their decision making, and now it's in a potential bid to destroy women's lives. You look at Texas, and it seems to me like they're going backwards in time. You have abortion being banned. First of all, let me get to this. The law says that abortion is banned after 6 weeks. But the problem is, it takes 6 weeks or more to even realize you're pregnant. So unless you know ahead of time that you're pregnant, which is hard to do, there's no way of knowing until you're at least past 6 weeks. And by that time, the government of Texas has put a hit out on you, and there's a bounty for your head because you decided that you want to do what you want with your body. Like, to me, that's ridiculous. The government of Texas is now saying that, okay, you want to do what with your body? You want to go get an abortion? Oh, well, we'll just put a bounty on your head and have anyone that wants to claim the $10,000 to go hunt you down and like an animal. Like, ridiculous. It's ridiculous that to even consider that as an option. Like, who in their right mind would want to do that? Who in their right mind would want to sit there and say, hey, I don't want you doing what you're doing with, I don't want you to choose what you want to do with your body. So I'm going to have a hit placed on you, and anybody that wants to claim the money can claim it and turn you into the police. Like, what is this, Nazi Germany? Like the Gestapo, like the Gestapo is going to show up and send you away to the prison camps, the labor camps, because you try to get an abortion. Like, let's get real here. It's ridiculous. It's seriously ridiculous. And there's not just abortion that's being banned. I mean, they're doing a lot of damage with their lot. Like I just saw this article the other day, on Facebook, not Facebook, Twitter. My bad, Twitter. It says that Texas has proposed and passed 666 laws. Now, the irony there is that 666 is the devil's number, and Texas is a highly Christian state, very religious, but yet they passed 666 laws. That's beside the point. The real issue here is that they ban abortions after 6 weeks. They criminalize homeless encampments, so pretty much criminalizing homelessness. What else? Let me pull that tweet up. Actually, I think I have it here in my. I gotta pull it up because I need to see exactly what they were. I know for a fact. I have it. Hold on. Let me pull this up here. NPR. If I could pull up the tweet, actually, that'd be better. Let me pull up the. NPR. Let's see here. Find it. Hold on. Let me try this. NPR Texas. Okay, here we go. So, like I said, 666 Texas laws have been passed by the GOP-led legislator. But the highlights, the major highlights, abortion is banned. They've also banned critical race theory. So in schools, in places of education, children are no longer allowed to learn the history of racism and discrimination and segregation within our country's history, especially slavery. Um, they're not allowed to learn that, and they're not allowed to learn about race and U.S. law and how those two intertwine, and really just the history of how U.S. law really like played a part in um, propping up racism in and around the United States, and around the United States, the South, North, it didn't matter where, just racism in general. It just they're not allowed to, they're not even allowed to learn that anymore. Which then plays an issue because I saw an article that says if critical race theory is banned, I don't know if it was an article or if it was a tweet. If critical race theory is banned in Texas, it'll allow the KKK to have more influence, and it'll make the KKK look better, because they won't be talking about the KKK's involvement in racism in the 20th century and even before. So that's an issue. Critical race theory should not be banned. But now they're putting a ban on homeless encampments, pretty much criminalizing homelessness. Like, first of all, I have a problem with homelessness, like being being a Christian and being an American, just being a human, really. I have a problem with homelessness because people don't choose to be homeless. They're homeless by force. Throughout many years in history, everybody has been able to have a place to live. Throughout many years in the past, the only reason homelessness exists is because of capitalism. Because homelessness is a capitalist created problem. You know, the fact is when you prioritize land ownership and private property, then it becomes a problem, because then when you commodify housing and land and private property, then it creates a problem where people can't afford to even have a house. And that's a big issue, because everyone deserves a place to live. Everyone deserves a house. Housing should not cost a dime for the average person. I think that everybody should be guaranteed a house, because it's not morally acceptable as well as socially acceptable to have somebody on the street and living out in the street for the rest of their days. It's not morally just, it's not societally just, it's not just at all. So nobody should have to live on the street. And now they're banning homeless encampments. Where are they going to go? You already don't provide housing for the home. We already don't provide housing for the homeless in this country. So where are they going to go? Once their camp is discovered by the police, they're going to just rip and tear it up, and then the homeless people will have nowhere to go. And so they're going to be sitting on the street, and they're going to die. They're going to get COVID or something, rather, and they're dead. And they just die. They just die on the street. And to me, that's a big issue. That's a big problem, and that really messes with my head. It really angers me, because I worry a lot about people. People not living on the street, people living in homeless encampments, under bridges, many places. It bothers me, because we have the ability to give everyone a house, but yet for the sake of capitalism, we choose not to because we'd rather prioritize profit and money over the well-being of humanity. So that's a big issue. But also now they also have it's felonies for protesters blocking roads. So goodbye to your right to protest, because if you're blocking a road, you're getting a felony. And it's also kind of comparable to when I think it was Tennessee, they did a law where if protesters are blocking the road, people have the legal right to run them over, which is ridiculous. That they made it legal for you to commit vehicular manslaughter on protesters just because they're blocking the street. Like, how ridiculous. And you guessed it, the people responsible for that law in Tennessee about running over the protesters, that was Republicans. It never fails. Sure, yeah, there's problems with Democrats. I have problems with both sides, but like I always say, if Republicans had the opportunity and the chance, they would have people like me killed and murdered and executed. They would have anyone that's to the left of the Republican Party executed and murdered. I guarantee you they would, because the people in that building, the Capitol building, the people in that Capitol building who are Republican, they are crazy. They are insane. Marjorie Taylor Greene, what's his name? The wheelchair guy. Madison Cawthorn, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, John Rutherford, who else? Rick Scott, Mitch McConnell, Kevin McCarthy, Jim Jordan. I mean, I could go on and list every single one of them, but I guarantee you those people are so insane. They're crazy. They would totally, if they had the chance, they would have, like Trump even was going to do something. You had the people in Minnesota protesting and rioting against the cops killing George Floyd, which, by the way, I support the riots and I support the looting, because in fact, I support looting of corporations, not looting of small businesses, because the small businesses, they don't deserve that. But the corporations, they deserve every bit of the looting. But let's get back on track here. I had a problem when Trump said that he was going to send the military in to kill American citizens in Minnesota who were protesting and rioting. He was going to have the military march in there and kill them. And then I bet you, and that's why I'm saying, I bet you any money that if Republicans in Congress and the Senate had their way, they would have communists, anarchists, liberals, progressives, anybody on the left. They would have them killed, or they would have them killed either by execution, death penalty, whatever. They would probably even have the if they could have the military the National Guard go around the country hunting down dissidents, aka communists, anarchists, liberals. They would have them killed. I guarantee it. They would do something like that. I don't put it past Republicans to do anything like that. I don't put it past Republicans, because I know they would do something that crazy. It's just like the people. It's just insane. Like if Trump supporters were willing to go to the Capitol, storm the Capitol, in an attempt to, which was a poor attempt in my opinion, but in an attempt to take out the government so they could keep Trump in power. If they were willing to do that, I guarantee Trump supporters, like those people who stormed the Capitol, would be more than willing to support any political position that involves the killing or the imprisonment or the torturing of communists and comms anarchists, leftists, progressives, liberals, any one of them. I guarantee they would support any sort of political position or law proposing such a thing. I know for a fact fascists already support that, like the hardcore fascists, like Proud Boys, Boogaloo Boys, whatever, the neo Nazis, all those people, the KKK. They already support the assassin or the extermination of communists and ancoms and anarchists. It's just a matter of time before the Republican Party picks that up as a policy position and starts veering towards the far right fascism. I mean, Republican Party is mild fascism, but if they were to adopt policy positions regarding communists and leftists and liberals and anarchists, like killing them and executing them, hunting them down, they would, if they adopted such policy positions, they would be pushing themselves further right to the extreme fascism. And that's a big problem. But luckily now they're no more than a nuisance on Fox News or on Twitter. They don't really have the power to really get their true ideas passed or acted on, which thank God, because if Madison Cawthorn or Lauren Boebert or Major Taylor Greene had all the power in the world, oh God, who knows what would happen? It wouldn't be good. I'll tell you that. It wouldn't be good at all. But that's all a whole nother topic. I could go on with that. But really, in the end of it all, I almost forgot. They also want to restrict voting, which itself is racist. Banning homeless encampments is classist. Voting restrictions are racist. I mean, how else can you justify restricting voting? How can you justify that without straight up, being racist? I mean, you can't justify voting restrictions. I don't know one Republican who could sit there and tell me why it's important we restrict voting without bringing up race or bringing up skin color. There's no chance. You can't explain away voting restrictions without being racist. I mean, it's a racist policy position. It's a racist issue. You're just restricting the voting of minorities, so that way, because that's the thing. Let me tell you this thing. Republicans know they can't win, so they have to cheat to be able to stay in the race. So that means voting restrictions. That means finding loopholes to where they can gerrymander the districts certain ways, loopholes with voting to stop people from voting certain things. And it's just a way for Republicans to try and cheat their way back into this race we call politics. Every year in the elections, like, they always got to cheat. Same with when the Republicans finally lose, they can't take it. So then they start making up lies and try to start stuff. Especially with this last election, Trump claimed that the election was stolen and Joe Biden is not the president, and he didn't win it rightfully. He was installed, and they just cheated their way, and it's not true. As much as I hate Biden too, it's not true. Biden's the president. He has always been the president since 2020. The 2020 election was certified in his name. So you can't sit there and say that it was stolen. That's just a Republican way, though. They like to sit there and say it's stolen. They like to lie, make up stuff. They like to cheat. They like to be racist. It's really about race. If Republicans had their way, they'd go back to the old days of before the Civil Rights Act, back when the KKK was really powerful. They'd go back to those days when they could segregate people. All white restaurants, all white bus stations, all white schools. They would love that. I'm telling you. Ted Cruz, all these politicians Major Taylor Greene, they'd all vote in Congress to be, let's take it back to the good old days of the South in America when blacks and Mexicans and Asians, they couldn't do much and they were segregated and discriminated against. That's the good old Republican way. Ooh, okay. Good for you. I mean, if you really believe that, you're seriously messed up in the head, because these days blacks have the same rights as whites. Minorities in general have the same rights as whites. They can do everything that we can do. And if you have a problem with that, you can leave the country. See what I did there? I used the Republican talking point against them. If you don't like this country, if you don't like that minorities have equal rights, women have equal rights, women have the right to choose what they want to do with their own bodies, you can go ahead and leave. See what I just did there? I'm telling you, you can use the Republican talking points back against them. And it's hilarious. It's hilarious. I also want to talk about getting back to the abortion thing, because we've been off topic talking about race and stuff, but back to the abortion thing. I've seen a lot of these funny pictures floating around on Facebook, Twitter, all over the place. They're talking about someone even tweeted, they're like, so Republicans want to ban women's right to an abortion or right to choose, how they want to, mess with their bodies. But at the same time, they're like, well, hey, women can only get pregnant once a year, but men can impregnate hundreds of women a year. So he's basically saying, why ban abortion when we should just make mandatory vasectomies legal? There's another meme where it's a woman and she's like, and they're saying they want to ban abortion, and then she's like, okay, we'll ban abortion. And then she ends up putting these pants, or not these underpants, on these dudes, and there's like a lock on it, basically locking up their private parts, so that way they can't use it for sexual means. And basically like saying, well, if you want to stop pregnancies, we'll just make sure you can't have sex. I mean, it's hilarious. It's genius. And I've seen so many different signs come out of the protests in Texas, protests all over the place. I've seen so many signs like talking about like mandatory vasectomies. God's will wasn't for abortion. It wasn't for pro-life. It was actually for vasectomies, and men should have vasectomies if they really want to, if they really want to stop pregnancies. And then there's also the ones talking about how, and I love this George Carlin clip. This is one of the examples. I love this clip. He talks about abortion, and he talks about how he's like, yeah, when you're preborn, they care all about you and they want to make sure you're safe. But when you're preschool, they tell you to go away. They want nothing to do with you no more. And I love that. I love what he says. And I love the, everything coming out, the political cartoons, the memes, basically saying Republicans care about, for some reason, when you're preborn, before you're born, they care all about you. But as soon as you come out and as soon as you're a baby, they want you to get a job. They want you to go to school. They want you to stop begging for things. It's like, if you really were pro-life, if you really were pro-life and cared about children, you would try to get kids adopted. You would try to get kids out of the foster system. You would support government programs. You would support the right to free housing, the right to food, the right to an education. You would support things that actually would help children who are born. But instead, you only care about them before they're born. Because once they're born, they're not worth your time. Yeah. It's honestly ridiculous. Ridiculously funny. That Republicans, like, for some reason, care only about the baby before it's born, and then once it's born, they don't care at all. It's kind of hypocritical, but it's hilarious. It's hilarious. Um, what was I gonna say? I don't remember. I was gonna say something, but I just can't remember what I was gonna say. Dang it. Anyway, yeah. Um. Oh, I think I had it, but then I lost it again. Something about I don't remember. Anyway, you know, it's ridiculous. I could go on and on and on and just clown Republicans like constantly. I could go on for a whole nother hour just dunking on Republicans, but I don't want to do that because that would be too long and a waste of time. But in the end, let's just say religion shouldn't be in politics. Men shouldn't be controlling women and their bodies. Republicans shouldn't be enforcing their own religious beliefs on others through their policy decisions. Republicans should stop being racist. Should stop criminalizing homelessness. Republicans should stop with these crazy ideas that they think should be the laws. They need to stop. They just need to step back and let things settle. Because Republicans, they're just like I have friends that are Republicans, and they're good people. Don't get me wrong, they're good people. I don't hate them, but at the same time, I'm like Republican. For some reason, the Republicans I'm friends with, they're pretty normal. They're pretty like sane. But for some reason, the Republicans in Congress, it's like it's weird. You're pretty normal when you're living your life, but once you become an elected official and sent to DC, you become crazy. Like these Republicans, like, I mean, there's some like Major Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert who are like crazy before they get there, but then it's like, DC turns normal Republican people into crazy people when they get there. Like, what's the deal with that? I don't know, but I just think after the fact that Republicans should stop using the Bible as an excuse, because the Bible shouldn't be where you get your answers from. Like, it's up to you to make your own decisions and to come up with the right answers. It shouldn't be the Bible's job to decide on everything that we do. The Bible should be used as a tool to help you learn and help you and teach you to be a better person, but it shouldn't be used as a tool to make decisions, government, or in positions of power. All in all I gotta say is women have rights. Women have the right to choose. Hands off women. Let women decide for themselves. Stay away from women's bodies. Stop being racist. Stop restricting voting. Stop criminalizing homelessness. And let people protest. Also, wear a mask. Get the vaccine. It's not some government conspiracy. The vaccine is going to save your life. It saved mine. I probably, if I would have caught COVID, oh no, who knows what would have happened. But the vaccine saves lives. Masks save lives. Don't listen to Republicans in Congress. Don't listen to Republican televangelists. They don't know what they're talking about. Don't listen to Alex Jones or any of those Republican talk show hosts. Don't listen to Fox News. They don't know what they're talking about. Horse dewormer is not going to save your life. It's not going to make you safe from COVID. It's going to make things. It's actually going to make things indifferent. It's not going to change COVID's response to your own body. It's going to stay the same, regardless of what you take. And if you take the vaccine, COVID in response to your body, it's going to be fine. COVID's going to go through your body, and then your body's going to fight it off, and it's going to be fine. But if you take horse dewormer to stop COVID, good luck, because that's not going to help. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the podcast, because I am not sure what else to talk about. Running my mouth talking about. I was going to talk about the rise of Republican Christo-fascism, but I just ended up talking about what happened in Texas. I could still title it that, which I'm going to, because technically I'm talking about the rise of Republican Christo-fascism within society today, especially within the last 10 years. But, I don't know. I'm just going to keep rambling on, and I don't want to do that. Anyway, leave you with a couple things. Be kind, be nice, and get the vaccine. Wear the mask. Don't listen to these people. Don't listen to them. That's all I got. This has been another episode of the Revolution Today podcast. Once again, this is sponsored by the people on Patreon who support me. If you want to be a supporter, that is patreon.com/revolutiontoday. Links in the description. Check out my other links in the description as well. I got a Facebook fan page. I got a TikTok. I do all these things. That's where you can keep up with me. I post. I want to start posting frequently on my Facebook page. I post like political cartoons, memes. I make joke posts about different things. I make very serious posts about politics. But overall, I want to start posting more podcasts on YouTube. I want to start doing more TikTok stuff. I want to do more Facebook stuff. Also, I'm not quite sure, but I think I don't know if I have my link tree down there or not, but I might put that down there for this next episode. My shop, I think my shop's down there too. If it's not, I'll put it in the link tree. But I have a shop. I do merch. If you want to buy some merch, it's down there in the description. It should be. And you can get yourself nice stuff: hats, shirts, coasters, prints, posters, shower curtains, even mouse pads, gaming desk pads, journals, books, clocks. They have it all. Backpacks even, and masks. They got a lot of and mugs. Don't forget mugs. They got a lot of good stuff on my merch shop. Different designs, different styles, different items. Make sure you go check out that shop and pick yourself up something nice. Anyways, I'll do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave a like. Please hit the subscribe button. Please leave a comment. If you're watching on Apple Podcasts, please leave a review. 5 stars. Give me a good review, because that helps boost the podcast on Apple Podcasts and helps make it grow a lot bigger than it is. But anyways, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. See you next time.